Hi, I thought I would do something different today, and I'm going to actually do a summary of Alone Season 3. It's just going to be a quick one. I just binge watched the last 4 episodes tonight just to catch up on the ending. I didn't see the reunion one, and I'll probably do that tomorrow. So, starting off, as always, I want to make sure that there's more awareness out to this lecture by Marc Edwards at Michigan University. So, go ahead and check it out if you haven't. So I know it's a little bit weird starting off, but I'm gonna go out with some Tartakower quotes. He's a famous chess master back in the 1930s, around then. He's kind of famous for his sayings. He's pretty smart. If you're wanting to get into chess, go ahead and start with him because it'll make it a little bit more exciting. So one of his quotes is, "The winner of the game is a player who makes the next to last mistake." Another one that I also like is, "No one ever won a game by resigning." Pretty obvious stuff, but it might hold some pertinence to what I'm going to talk about. So the Wooded Beardsman is someone I follow for a lot of Survivor type stuff. Just he did a couple of things that I like, which is kind of talking about. Well, he actually goes out with a friend of his and sees how much of so beyond survival, he does a wilderness living challenge just to see if he can accumulate enough calories to keep his body weight, in a livable condition in survival. As you'll see in Alone Season 3, there were 2 contestants that had to leave because they were essentially starving. Now, back in December, I believe, let's look at the start of this video. He uploaded a video called Alone Season 3 Official Winner Prediction, and I just spent a day. I was a little bit late because I wanted to analyze and assess who my choice for the winner would be. So his video was published on December 6, 2016, and I had my assessment. Where's my name? There we go. Here, and I just kind of spent like 3 hours maybe just coming up with my assessment. So I gathered information in the Wikipedia, and I watched the season 1, season 2, so I kind of had a good feeling. And I just kind of had based on, I kind of just didn't really take into account age that much because it didn't seem to matter. I didn't take into account of locations because I figured that the producers of the show or the survival experts would actually pick something that's fair for everyone. What I did take into the most consideration was their family, if they were single or if they had kids, because that's also a big determining factor, and how much of a loner they were. And being a loner, I think, helps in this game or contest or reality show, whatever you want to call it. So by analyzing season 1, I kind of had a guess of, what are the odds of someone's going to get scared and they're going to leave the first couple weeks. And another is, who's just going to not be in there mentally and just kind of fail. And because they just want to get back home to their family, especially their kids. And so you can go and read through this. Basically, my predictions was based on history. Who was gonna end up tapping out, and it's a little bit tricky because, I didn't weigh in Zach Fowler for very, very high because he was leaving behind a wife and 2 kids. One was just almost, pretty sure, probably less than a year old. So I was thinking he was gonna probably tap out because he'd want to get back with them. but it actually backfired because he wanted so much to build a life with his wife and his two kids that was actually more of an incentive than a hamper. I mean, if other contestants went on, I think he might have had trouble. Um, for example, what was her name? Callie, the herbalist from Lopez Island, Washington State. I think she could have made the distance. She was there good enough with the body mass index. She was thriving, but she let her spirituality get the better of her. And of course, um, it's a game. So if you're not wanting to win the game, then you're probably going to lose. So she won on her own goals, just like I sometimes don't care about winning, but she did lose the game. Um, Going back to chess, my first chess tournament I was doing well, but I didn't. I kind of lost heart because one of the people this was when I was like 18, 19. I went with my brother. I went against this older guy who's maybe like in his 50s or 60s, and I was beating him so bad, and my timer, I just played quick. And then he was almost in tears, crying, and I was like, okay, it's important to him, it's not important to me, so I just didn't care about winning and lost the game to him. And just the rest of the tournament, I really didn't care about winning. My brother, he was so intent on winning, which is funny, that he had he could have won the tournament, but he wanted to win every game and not consider it a draw. So he was going against the person, I think it was the finals, and he had a good situation to just make the draw and win the tournament, but he wanted to win so bad that he made a mistake and he lost to him. So it's funny. His mentality is so much about winning that he ended up losing by doing that. Well, my mentality was I didn't care about winning so much that it took someone that was like in his 50s, 60s to cry, where I was like, okay, I don't care. So, okay, so I really liked how Callie was doing. I kind of wish she stayed. I think she could have won it all. Same thing with Megan. She was doing pretty good, but then she had a tooth injury, and that's kind of debilitating factor. And I thought I thought Carleigh, I thought she did well. She did really good. I think she would have won it, just between her and Zach Fowler, but I think she got cheated because her body mass index was 16.8, and I think they're worried for anyone that was dropping to 17, under 17. So I really, really feel sorry for her. I kind of wished she would have stayed in, and my assessment pretty much had it so that the females the women will have the best chances this season. I thought Britt would have gone far because of his being a loner, but that didn't quite pan out. I thought Greg would also do well, but he also made a mistake and almost had hypothermia, so he had to go. And it was pretty much, what I guessed. It was going to be a toss-up between Carleigh and Megan if Greg made a mistake. Except Zach Fowler, and I replied to the Wooded Beardsman, about Zach's assessment, and that part of my assessment is what made me get it wrong, and I thought it was going to be a detriment, because it would be a detriment to me leaving behind two daughters or two kids. It didn't matter if it was a boy and a girl. So, and I'm wondering, maybe that's actually a better incentive sometimes. I mean, the majority of time, if you're going to drop out, you're going to be dropping out because you want to see your family, especially your young ones. And so far, for at least the women that have been in the show where they have kids, that's kind of the primary reason they tapped out. So, in my future assessment, if you're a female and you have kids, You're not gonna go high on my list anymore. I'm sorry. Uh, and also, if you're a father with kids, I think I'm actually gonna move that up above someone who doesn't, or I mean, at least newborns, just because even though it's a really big risk, it's also a really big reward if they actually can survive long enough. I put Zach Fowler really, really high, except for that factor. His body size starting off is going to last him. As you could see, that's what really helped him. I didn't put Dave very well up there in my pick because he was kind of already skinny to begin with. And of course, he literally starved himself, which he didn't have to. He had so much fish. And also, it also doesn't help that, anyways, you can see kind of everyone, and you already know. If you're watching this series or this episode of mine, you know that the people I'm talking about. One thing I didn't factor in, and I never factored in, and I think you really can't factor it in the show because they don't really tell you beforehand where everyone is located. Like, at least I didn't know while I was making my assessment. Now, if you take a look, the top 5, the last 5 people who lasted longest were right here. The ones who kind of left early were right here. I think Greg, yes, that's right. So Greg lasted longer than Jim, Zach, Dan, and Britt, and he was kind of in like the smallest lake. I don't think it would have made too much of a difference, but that also attributes to the amount of rainbow trout that you'll catch. Now, in the show, if you don't know the history about Patagonia, is they introduced rainbow trout and brook trout and brook trout don't really last long because they're so aggressive at eating. Anyways, for recreational purposes back in the 20th century, they stocked the lakes in Patagonia. So a lake like Escondido Lake probably has a few 100,000 rainbow trout in there, and so that's quite a lot of meat, decent amount of fat, not great but decent. If you do a simple search such as rainbow trout fat, they have 4.9 grams of fat. That's for one fillet. So 2 fillets is like 10 grams. And that's for, I think, that the typical, and you can see the calories is 111 calories. So 2 fillets is going to be about 220. And I believe that's going to be, I don't know, that's why I'm saying it. I believe it's based off of probably a 1 pound trout. So the ones in the show, they're probably bigger. I would say they're around at least 2 pounds per fish, probably 2.5, and that's a good amount. What I want to show you is daily fat recommendations, I guess. So for 2000, you're probably going to want more calories when you're living out in the wild because you're going to expend more calories. So you want at least 65 grams of fat in your diet per day. You can probably get away with less. So fish, 2 pound fish is probably going to get you 20 grams of fat, which is really great in the wild. It's going to give you a decent amount of calories. 1 2 pound fish is going to get you around at least 500 calories. So you eat 4 fish a day. If you can force yourself to eat 4 fish a day, that's a 2,000 calorie diet. That's about 80 grams of fat. You're going to get a good amount of nutrients, and they're low in mercury, so that's also good. They're also high in vitamins. So it's really, I wouldn't say really high in vitamins, but decent enough. You eat 4 fish, you're going to get a decent amount. So that's the difference between rainbow or trout as compared to a lot of other fish. They have really, really fatty flavor, which is good for your omega-3s and things like that. So they could have persisted instead of focusing on wild game, like land game, just making sure they catch fish and smoke them, dry them, just kind of like how Dave did, but not ration. You only want to ration when you have surplus. You don't want to ration when you are starving, because you're not surviving then. You're just holding out. Holding out is not survival. When you're going the distance, when it's all about who lasts the longest, you have to be in there gaining weight, trying to gain weight, but trying to not lose as much weight as you can. So anyways, when we're going back to here, you can see that people in this area really had the advantage to larger lake. They probably had an easier time catching fish, and I'm pretty sure that was the case. And the thing about rainbow trout, their behavior in lakes are a lot different than when they're in streams and rivers. They actually school together a lot. They hang around each other a lot. So if you find a spot where they are, you're going to probably catch a lot of them. And so my strategy would be just fish and fish and fish and stock up and fish. And all you could do foraging, there's a lot of good stuff you could forage, and planting, if you could find anything that you can plant and grow. I'm not sure if it's part of the show, but if you can get some type of seeds, because you can get like a pound of rations or 2 pounds of rations or something like that. And I would probably just take mostly seeds for planting, and that would kind of be my survival thing, because even though a lot of things take a while to grow, sometimes a month, sometimes 2 months, especially in that type of climate, you're going to want to grow something. The thing is, when you're in a cold climate, you really can't live off of just vegetables and fruit. You're going to plant stuff. You really need to get some type of meat for sustenance, and you'll see that in any type of climate. You're going to have less farming, agriculture, and more hunting and meat processing, stuff like that. So in cold conditions, you're going to need to focus on meat, and the best meat there that's easily to catch and is abundant would be rainbow trout. So I think a lot of the contestants, what they should have focused on was that people don't realize just how much you can get off of rainbow trout. And you have to follow history, you have to follow cultures, and it's just one of those things you have to know. And then once you know how to catch rainbow trout, understand their behavior, and that's kind of why I put the biologist as high up there, that I would figure she would understand that. And she did. She was the only one that brought what is it, the net, but she didn't really use it very well. I think if she did, she could probably catch upwards of like 10 to 20 rainbow trout per day. I mean, that's not going to kill a lot of the population of the lake, of the rainbow trout in the lake. I mean, if you're even talking about just 100,000 rainbow trout, and that's kind of a low number for a lake that size. If she ate 10, if she caught 20 fish a day for 100 days, that's 2,000 fish. That's 2% of the fish population. But that lake probably has at least 1 million. That's just theory. That's just a belief. Just from my history of what I know about lakes that size, being able to, I mean, they're stocked way back in the 20th century. The amount of fishing isn't very high. The amount of fish that they did catch on lines was pretty big, and they also were caught at a pretty close distance to the shore. So if season 4 happens to go along, you're going to see a lot more people focusing on the fishing, a lot less people focusing on traps, and bringing a bow and arrow or something, or things like that. They're going to want to focus on fish, on rainbow trout. There's certain fish that you won't get as much value out of, but rainbow trout, is very, very good fish that you can survive off for a very long time. Um, my survival situation, if I was ever in an apocalypse or whatever, would be going towards all the stocked fish, rainbow trout that are in the lakes. That will last me and my family quite a long time. So, anyways, I wanted to share that with you, just kind of my thoughts and analysis. I'll go ahead and leave the links up to what my assessment was. It was close, just not enough. It'll make my analysis better for season 4. I would love to go on the show for alone. Pretty good at being alone, that's for sure. My survival skills, I think, are mediocre. I know enough that I'm sure I could survive for a long time, but will I thrive? That's another thing. Is it doesn't matter how much you know. It's kind of your mentality and just making the right decisions. And like Tartakower says, you know, it's the player who makes the next to last mistake. So minimize your mistakes, follow your game plan, your strategy, and you're gonna make it. And you want to utilize all the skill sets that you have as advantages. The things that you don't have, you don't want to worry about those, because you're not gonna learn when you're out there. Because when you learn when you're out there, you're gonna make mistakes. So don't be the person who makes the mistakes. Make the least amount of them. All right, that's it.